I'm just going to give you a small picture of my mother's life from my perspective. I may have gotten some of these stories from everybody else over the years, so if I steal yours, sorry. My mom was born in Wheeling, West Virginia, 1940, during the war years. She went to a one-room schoolhouse and lived on a small farm. But for her, small-town life was not for her, and she moved to the big city of Parma. She met my father, fell in love, and married in 1959. In 1962, my brother came along. Robert Emerson Baumann. Some of you probably don't know him as that because Emerson was my mother's favorite writer, and that's what she wanted his middle name. But my father wanted a junior and had his middle name changed to Ernest. So that's why his name is now Ernest. Very strange. Then 1968, I came along. I think I was an oops. They always thought I was going to be a girl. Probably you're like saying, yeah, you act like one. But she wanted to name me Richard. But during that time, my father was like, no way are we naming him Richard. They will call him Dick.
You still do.
Yeah, I know. Especially on the other side of my family. So they decided on Tab with the middle name of my grandfather, William. That way they could shorten it down to TW. But I don't know why, because we don't live in Texas. So I'm glad it all just stuck with Tab. Marrying my father, she married into the garden center greenhouse business. The only real downtime in the garden center greenhouse business is in January. Well, what do you do in January? You go someplace warm. So where did they go? Acapulco, Mexico. At that time, my uncle would go to Mexico with them. His son, Billy II, would go with them. And I guess something but the way my mother looked, they gave her the nickname Gidget. Now, if you don't know anything about Gidget, Gidget was this little tiny blonde girl in beach movies during the 60s. So if you see some of the pictures up there of my mother in this little bikini on the beach, she looked exactly like Gidget. Which I thought your dad would be here and he'd be able to tell me the story on that one. Besides in Mexico, what else is there to do besides lay on the beach? But go deep sea fishing. And boy, did my father want to go fishing all the time. The only problem was my father never caught anything. My mother always caught the fish. And it wasn't this fish, it was this fish. So you had this 4'11" little blonde woman catching a fish that's almost twice her size. My father would get so pissed, we're never going again. But guess what? Next time they went down, we're going fishing, and I'm going to catch something. My mother caught the fish. Every time. My mother, 4'11", really tiny. She always had to have a big car. They were boats. She had a Cadillac, but the one I remember most was this 1978 two-door Lincoln Continental that probably wouldn't fit in anybody's garage today. Two stories with that. One was we were going to opening day baseball, Indians. Me and my friend. She's going to drive us down there. We're going to go see baseball. But she gets a phone call from my Uncle Bill. He's also going to the game, but he needs for her to give a couple friends a ride down to the stadium. My mother says, no problem. So we stopped on the corner of 9th and Lakeside. There's a group of guys standing there. My uncle says, you can't miss them. You'll see who it is. So she stops, and there on the corner, City Council President George Forbes. City of Cleveland, School Council President Arnold Pickney. And their bodyguards. You know, if you ever seen George Forbes, he was like Kucinich's main rival during the late 70s, and they stood about this tall. So you had this little white woman driving this big white car, and all these guys start to shuffle in. I didn't think my mother could scooch down in that seat any further. As we drive down the street, everybody's going, "Hey, George Forbes!" And then he's like, "Yeah," and my mother just kept getting lower and lower in that seat. She never took another call from my uncle again while she was going to a baseball game. Same car, another story. They used to have friends over my house at Halloween time. Because we had a lot of houses, go trick-or-treating, because they were from Valley View, houses were very far apart. Come on over, we'll all go trick-or-treating together. Well, besides me having a couple friends stay over the house, another one of my friends that did live in a neighborhood, he would have a couple friends. And another one of my friends, he would have a couple friends, and we'd all go together. Well, we had this bright idea. Let's go see a movie in Permian. Okay. Who would take us? My mom will take you. We'll all go. 14 of us, 7th graders, fit in that car. It looked like Stuff the Bug from the 60s. After we got to Permian and everybody piled out, I got the old crab hold by the back of the neck, and she looked at me and told me, "Never again." During my life, one thing my father always instilled in me was the importance of work. You gotta work for what you want, always. But my mother, on the other hand, she was the opposite. She taught me how to play. Which is where her love of bowling and baseball come into play. Boy, did she love to bowl. And any chance she had, she went bowling. At one time, she was on 2 leagues, different days of the week. And on Saturday, tournaments. If she made the cut for tournaments, she bowled again on Sunday. But if she didn't make the cut, guess what? We're going to practice. Early Sunday morning, up at Cloverleaf, sheep bowling. Now, it's a funny thing that my dad goes up to the senior center and plays cards, and he told me he plays with a gentleman called Bob Moyer. Bob Moyer would go with Mom bowling on Sunday morning, trying to teach her how to throw a curveball. She never learned how to throw a curveball. But that was the fun thing about my mother going bowling. I got to go with her. Boy, did my dad hate that. Oh, did he hate that. Again, every weekend, Dad. Sorry, I'm going with her. Oh, did he hate that. But with that bowling, she ended up getting pretty good. She loved those tournaments. And one time, she did really well, and she made the cut. She got to bowl again on Sunday. And she did really well again, and ended up in the top 5. Well, she didn't know, but those top 5 bowlers would bowl against each other, and it would be televised on TV. It wasn't actually the ABC's Wide World of Sports, but to her it was. She ended up 5th. She continued bowling all through her years, pretty much into her 60s. With her bowling, she taught me how to, my love of bowling, I love to bowl. Every year, we get together, all my Czech friends, relatives, and a lot of times my mother would come with us. And she's in her 60s, bowling with all of us in our 20s and 30s, and she's beating us. She held her own. She never won, but she held her own. And all the Czech guys would love when she came. Her other biggest hobby, interest, as you can kind of tell, was her baseball team, the Indians. She always knew who was pitching that day, who was hitting well, and who was slumping. When I was younger, she bought season tickets. Another thing my dad was pissed at. Because when were the games? On the weekends. When I didn't have to go to school, and we could go to the games. I love you, Dad. This is just funny to me. One time, with the season tickets, the Indians actually had the All-Star game in town. It was during the 1981 season. That got shortened due to a strike, but they actually held the All-Star game. And she got to take her mother and her stepfather to a game. And she was so proud that she could do that. This is a tough one. A few years ago, for her birthday, I took her to a game. She didn't walk so well, but she wanted to go. I didn't tell her where the tickets were. And as we walked down, closer and closer to the field, she was having a heart attack. She couldn't believe where we were sitting. We got to sit behind the Indians' dugout. She could actually see the players' faces and not have to strain to see the names on their back. And she was just in awe. Where we were sitting, it was mostly season ticket holders. And they go to the games all the time. Well, as you know, you've probably seen during in-between innings, they come out and jump around and dance on top of the dugout and throw stuff out to the fans. Of course, we didn't get anything. But I let everybody know sitting around us, it was her birthday. So anytime anybody around us caught something, they came and gave it to her. She got a hat, a foul ball, a hot dog. It was pretty crazy. I was like, it's okay with the hot dog there, buddy. She was so happy. Her smile was so big and bright. If you turned the lights off in that stadium, you could see her smile. It was that big. That was the last game she went to. All right. Now, my mother was married to my father for 22 years, something like that. But after that, my mother could never really settle down in one place too long. She got divorced. She moved down to Hickory, North Carolina to be by her sister Joanne and spend time with her because she hadn't seen her in so long and she figured that's what she wanted to do. After Joanne, she decided to get her own place where she moved twice more in Hickory. Then after that, she moved again out to Raleigh because Joanne moved out. Well, while there, she moved again, twice, something like that. But again, she grew tired of that. I don't want to live with Joanne anymore. I want to move. Where are you going to move now, Mom? I'm going to Pennsylvania to be with my other sister. But she didn't get along with her brother-in-law too well, and that didn't work out either. So after what, 3-4 months? Something like that, whatever it was. Tab, can you move me again? Or where are you going to move? I thought I'd come live with you. Okay, Ma, come live with me. I think I became her personal moving company. I thought after a while of moving her so many times, we were like that Willie Nelson song, on the road again. Because like a band of gypsies down the highway, we went somewhere else. Now there's a reason why kids move out, away from their parents. I want to start off new, and God, I don't want my parents to tell me what to do anymore. I love my mother so much, but after her living with me, Ma, you got to find your own place and get the hell out of here. You can't live with me anymore. Little did I know that after trying a few places that suited her, I would move her again. And I moved her 6 or 7 times while she was in Medina. Thank God, the amount of stuff that I moved kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller. But then guess what? Jeannie decides she wants to move here. And I gotta move their stuff. Again. How many times? Jeez. But at least after I moved you guys, that was the last place. So, sad to say, that was it. But then after she passed, I had to move her stuff to my house. All the places she lived: Wheeling, West Virginia, St. Clairsville, Parma, Independence, Brooklyn Heights, Hickory, North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina, Rocky Mount, North Carolina. I don't know where you lived outside of Pittsburgh there. Then she moved where I live, Medina Township, and finally setting in the city of Medina. Besides bowling and baseball, she really loved her boys. And there was usually nothing she would say no to, especially when we asked nice. When I was younger, if you remember this one, she took us to Cincinnati to a War Gamers convention. One day, we flew down to Cincinnati, stayed there all day, and then flew back at night. That was my brother's thing, but I liked it too. We had a good time. War Gamers conventions, kind of like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. We got to go to rock concerts. I think my dad helped in that with Mr. Lojack and Loge. We got to see Earth, Wind, and Fire. And we got to see Kiss in the middle of snowstorms. Twice. My dad was not happy about driving in that. She found a way for me to play soccer with the help of my uncle in North Royalton that I wasn't a resident of, because I wanted to play soccer so bad. She came to both of our weddings. Well, I should say both mine and his. Sorry, I had to. The thing with my brother's was, his was halfway around the world in the Philippines, and she went by herself so she could be there. She always worried about us. Sometimes she would make up stuff to worry about. She was there for us when we were younger, and always wanted to be there when we were older. Which is probably why she moved back to Medina to be with me. To see her boys grow into men and have families and grandchildren brought her so much joy. My brother had his first, and she got to spend a lot of time down in Florida with the first one. I don't know how much she got to spend with Morgan. Boy, was I jealous. Boy, was I jealous. Calling Ma, all I got to her about was, you should see your brother. You should see Avery. Yeah. What else you doing? Well, with your brother and Avery and Gina. Okay, mother. But when I had mine, I understood. I understood why she was so proud. The look on her face. We went to Bob Evans. And we gave her a card for Mother's Day. And it said, Happy Grandmother's Day. And she couldn't believe it. She yelled so loud they thought they were being attacked. She told everybody that came by the table, my kids, they're going to have a girl. They're going to have a baby. and she still has that card. I found it in a box. So I understood why she was so proud. Lost my place, sorry. Allie and Philly called her Grammy. They made up a name for all the adults in their life, which were all good, don't get me wrong. She was involved in everything they did. From school, athletics, musicals, and art. She kept everything the two of you ever made and gave to her. All the greeting cards and even all the little scribbles. She was so proud of you two. Page 18, sorry. My mother's gone, but I look at my kids and see her in the two of them every day. My daughter looks and acts just like her. Stubborn, procrastinator. Philip looks at pictures when I was younger and asks me, I don't remember doing that with Grammy. But the thing is, it's me. Because he looks just like me when I was younger. My wife, Yana. She never had a girl, but accepted you as her daughter. When I was there, they would talk about everything and nothing. They got along so well. Swooning over Tom Jones. Right after we got married, they got to go see Tom Jones. I don't know if they threw their underwear on the stage, but they had a good time. They loved gambling on those slot machines in Vegas. Spend time on the beach, in Myrtle Beach and Mexico with Yana's other family, or Yana's family, I should say. She loved you so much. She did. My mother is passed and her pain is gone. But I wonder where she's gone. I tend to think that now she's in a better place. She is with her family and friends that have passed on before her. She's sitting there having a glass of wine with Yana's Uncle Charlie. She's playing cards and arguing about the rules with Ron Hetzel. And somebody that I know you guys don't know well. She's sitting there listening to her country music and drinking a beer with Walker. There's so many more things that I could tell you about my mother. The stories I've heard about you guys growing up on the farm. All the different jobs she had over her lifetime. She was definitely a jack of all trades, but a master of none. The many friends and acquaintances she made over the years. Growing up in school, coming to Parma, marrying my father, leaving my father, living with Joanne, the business with Joanne, and then all the numerous places she worked, which I can't even remember all of them, trying the photography thing, and she was halfway decent at that. But also, how creative she could be out of nothing. Because at the end, she didn't have a lot of money. So it was always strange what we would receive for Christmas every year. Whether it was some shirt with a cutout iron out, cut the thing out, and you iron the thing on there. Didn't look great, but it was the thought that counted. And on I can go. But I think you're all a little tired of listening to me. If anybody else has anything that they would like to say, speak. No pressure. I know it's hard getting up in front of some people. But sometimes somebody has a funny story better than mine. Or anything like that. But I know Jeannie wants to come up here. Or do you want to make Allie go? Chicken.
Ruthie and I lived together for 3 years. We learned a lot about each other at that time, stories that the other one didn't know. Like when she lived in North Carolina, she was supposed to be watching Joanne's dog. And she took Laura to a bar with her. And she danced on the table. A few of her friends were there to see her. And I kept saying, you didn't do that. Yeah, I did.
I'm gonna push this down so we can hear you.
I don't think it works.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
doesn't it?
No,
Yeah.
I'm just loud.
Yeah, I don't talk as loud as Stab. When we were young, went to a 2-room schoolhouse. Teacher asked one day, does anybody know what a fire sale was? And Ruthie was just so proud. She raised her hand, she says, a sale on matches. Of course, everybody got a big laugh out of that. And then one time, she bought Tab a puppy at Christmas. And when she gave him the puppy, he says, I don't want no puppy, I want a bunny. She was kind of disappointed about that. One day we were at Drug Mart and we were buying female cats. We looked and looked and we decided on one, grabbed it and left. We got home, they were men's. Of course, I had the job of taking them back. The cashier got a big laugh out of that. Every time we'd go, she'd just look at us and laugh. And I'd point to Ruthie. Ruthie'd say, I didn't do that. Oh, yeah, you did. She got the blame for everything. On April 2nd, she had a stroke. We took her to the hospital. She needed surgery. She had in her neck blockage. They decided to take it out, but it was postponed 5 times. One time, me and Tab went to the emergency room. The doctor come out and he said, she tested positive for COVID, so we can't operate. And she'll be quarantined for 10 days. Well, a couple days later, me and Tab got sicker than dogs, but she was fine. And then she got her surgery. A few days later, we went to see her, and she didn't know us. She called me by a name I never even heard her mention. And they said she had another one. She had another one on her other side, and it affected her brain. From then on, we didn't know what to expect when we went to see her. Or the one wouldn't know if she was gonna be normal Ruthie, or the Ruthie we didn't know. And she would sometimes, she always seemed to know Tab's name, but sometimes she didn't know mine. And she would tell Tab, don't let Jeannie touch my stuff. Her stuff was very important.
Her stuff.
Her. Tab was a very loving son. I was so proud of him. He was so patient and loving to her. It was hard on him. It was hard on both of us. On the way home, sometimes we'd be laughing, sometimes crying. It was really hard to see someone you love so helpless. She always worried about everything, and if she didn't have anything, she made it up to worry about. One day, it would be, don't let Jeannie touch my stuff. The next time she'd say, Jeannie, take anything you want in that apartment. The last day I saw her, she was so glad when I went in the room. She smiled big and she said, Tab told me you was coming today. She said, sit down by me here. She held my hand the whole time. Thanked me for being with her and taking care of her. And she says, I want you to take anything you want. She was just like a rolled silk. I told her I was going to PA on Sunday. And she says, well, do me one favor when you go. She says, write me a letter. Tell me what's going on and how you're doing. And I thought about going again, and I thought, no. That visit was so perfect. When Tab comes, she was in a good mood. She just acted like her old self. And I was glad I spent 3 years with her, and I would do it again. And different times we talked about dying, and we both decided when we got to the point we couldn't take care of ourselves, we didn't want to live anymore. And I think that's what happened to her. I think, stroke or not, in her own mind, she was ready to go. We weren't ready for her to leave, but she was ready to go. And I was so mad at her because she wouldn't eat. And I said to her one time, I said, I'm going out by the elevator. I'll wait for you there, Tab. And I looked at her and I said, do you have a death wish? And she said to Tab, what'd she say? What'd she say? Tab just sort of snickered and said, nothing. Well, I thought afterwards, you know, she has the right to decide how she wants to go. And I think that's exactly what she did. And I respect her for that. And I love you, Ruthie. Rest in peace.
Anybody else? Funny story? Have a nice day.